Welcome to today's seminar, where we learn about our WISER Horizons case studies from Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, and Peru on non-economic drivers of well-being. I'm Julia Firma from the University of Twente, one of our organizers, together with Javier Martinez, Karma Antoni, and Maria Bakayova. Today we'll hear 4 short presentations on what improves well-being, for whom, where, and under which conditions. This will be followed by a roundtable discussion and Q&A session where we'll identify cross-case learning between local partners, NGOs, researchers, and WISER stakeholders. The key question we explore today is how does local knowledge and lived experience help identify what matters for people's quality of life and well-being? Before we get started, just a few house rules. So please keep your microphone muted during the presentations. And throughout the event, I encourage you to write questions into the Q&A chat anytime. And in the end, we'll have time for a Q&A session where we'll come back to your questions and also open the floor to any other questions arising. Please also note that the session is being recorded. And now you can use the chat to introduce yourself, where you're joining from, your background, and your interests. And we'll get started now with a brief introduction to the WISER project. WISER is short for Wellbeing in a Sustainable Economy Revisited, and it's funded under the European Union's Horizon Europe program. It launched nearly 3 years ago, and we are now entering our dissemination phase where we are translating our findings into policy advice. WISER builds on research showing that economic growth does not automatically translate into higher well-being. So we aim to explore and promote well-being within a sustainable economic framework. And this framework allows for the identification of win-win-win-win situations. So that includes well-being, productivity, sustainability, and inclusiveness. So economic growth improves lives only when the foundations of a good life are protected, which includes fair distribution, social trust, democratic voice, and a healthy built and natural environment. Today, we present findings and lessons learned from our working package 4 on non-economic drivers of well-being. This includes a Peru case study, which examines how the built and natural environment shapes subjective well-being in communities facing deep socio-spatial fragmentation, multiple overlapping infrastructure and environmental challenges, including unequal policies and urban public investment. Our Kenya case study explores how household water insecurity, that includes too little, too dirty, or too much water, shapes subjective well-being in formal and informal settlements in Nairobi. It focuses on the drivers and barriers to well-being in communities where inadequate water, sanitation, and hygiene, also short WASH services, are compounded by environmental challenges such as flooding, infrastructural constraints, and institutional factors such as weak governance, insecure land tenure, and limited investment. In South Africa, we explore we look at the drivers of well-being in an informal settlement in Cape Town and show how co-produced social infrastructure interventions can generate multiple benefits at once, including environmental improvements, economic opportunities, skills development, and stronger social connections, all supported by inclusive governance and participatory decision-making. And finally, in Ghana, our case study focuses on women vendors in Kumasi's informal economy and explores how well-being is shaped under economic hardship. And it also explores how social networks play a key role in helping women cope with unstable incomes and daily risks by providing informal support, small loans, and mutual assistance. So now I want to introduce our first speaker on our Peru case study, and I'll shortly hand over to Dr. Liliana Miranda Sara from Foro Ciudades para la Vida. Liliana is an architect by background and an urban environmental expert, planner, and researcher with over 40 years of international experience in urban planning, climate risk, and sustainable development across 13 countries. She is currently a lead author of the Cities and Climate Change Special Report of IPCC and also lead author for the IPCC's 6th assessment report, and has played a key role in shaping national climate policy and local climate action plans across the country. Liliana is also the founder and executive director of Cities for Life Forum in Peru an interinstitutional network of municipalities, universities, and civil society from 18 cities in Peru. So Liliana, the floor is yours now.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you, WISER, for this opportunity to share with you what we are doing in Chiclayo. First of all, this is a teamwork, and we have been developing this with the university, the Catholic University of Santo Toribio of Mogrovejo in Chiclayo, and also together with the students of the professors of those universities, that university, I mean, and together with some team inside the cities for Life Forum, like Andrea Gramboa and people from the technical team of USAT, and of course the University of Twente. Well, this work is being done in Peru, as I said, and in the north coast of Peru, the city of Chiclayo in Lambayeque, and actually it's the city of our Pope, the Catholic Pope. Chiclayo. It's a middle-sized city where, you know, as many cities of Peru, is marked by a deep urban divide which dictates the life projects of its inhabitants. Disadvantaged communities are, you know, in settlements like San Antonio, are limited to basic survival needs, lacking water, sanitation, security, safety. And the wealthiest areas are consolidated neighborhoods like Villarreal, which enable personal growth, job stability, and long-term aspirations. And so the experience that they are having are completely different between the both settlements. In San Antonio, the residents focus on survival mode, and leading to higher emotional stress and isolation due to natural scarcity. And Villarreal, the residents enjoy flourishing mode, where greenery and services support health, calm, and community identity. So also, in the case of the climate risk, the infrastructure gaps in San Antonio are critical, and it converts rains into disasters. Even with the meaning of 25 millimeters, 18 millimeters, it gets flooded for weeks. And while nature acts as a buffer in Villarreal, and the action, the justice in general terms, the interventions can shift from just infrastructure to redistributed urbanism that threats green spaces as a fundamental right, not a luxury. So there are a structural disadvantage situation there, and it's a multidimensional gap. So it is not just economic, it is a structural barrier that prevents residents from fully exercising their rights. The informal residents are subject to severe pollution from canals and industrial waste, coupled with constant risk of flooding, and precarious urban grid with unpaved roads and deficient sewage systems that fail during extreme weather events such as El Niño, which is already, you know, preparing, you know, the Niño is being in a process of growing in the Pacific Ocean, and is coming again to hit all the north coast of Peru. So systemic obstacles that deny citizens the right to fully enjoy and benefit from the city's collective is there. And well, I mean, this neglect, this is a policy of neglection, you know, and it has a cost. The communities are made vulnerable by institutional neglection, unequal policy, and public investments. Settlements are left highly exposed to climate disasters like El Niño without consolidated water connections, drainage infrastructure, which is simply not there. It doesn't exist. Urban green spaces for protection or urban generation are very, very, you know, small spaces and not even enough trees, and the houses are not adequate yet, and the services are incomplete. And in general terms, Chiclayos have deep social and spatial fragmentation, limits disadvantaged communities to basic survival needs, like water and safety. And while wealthier areas, like the one there in the picture, enjoy personal and long-term urban development. The urban design should address not only infrastructure gaps, but also well-being and emotional outcomes. The environmental equity and green spaces have a strong influence on happiness and aspirations, and investing in green public spaces and services in vulnerable areas reduces inequalities, boosts resilience, and supports sustainable urban development. So in short, in summary, inequality is policy, vulnerability is policy, poverty is policy. Historical regulatory frameworks contribute to socially construct disasters, and they are recurrent and they hit even the same group of people again and again. So we need gray infrastructure for equity, and we need green and blue infrastructure for resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Liliana, for a very clear presentation. Interesting. I'm now going to hand over to our next speaker, Dennis Musioka, researcher in the Population Dynamics and Urbanization theme at the African Population and Health Research Center. He has a background in health and environmental biotechnology, and his work is focused on improving water services in urban populations and generating evidence on the impact of safe water supply and behavior change interventions on diarrhea. He leads the design and implementation of water, sanitation and hygiene or WASH studies in urban settings and supports evidence to policy pipelines to drive impact in urban communities. He also played a key role in our WISER work in understanding how water insecurity and sanitation affect subjective well-being and productivity in formal and informal settlements in Nairobi, which we'll present now.
All right, I'll just proceed. If you could, because I'm not able to go to the next slide, so please, if you could do that for me. Thank you. Apologies, everyone, for the hitch. So my name is Dennis Musioka, presenting this work on behalf of amazing colleagues from the African Population and Health Research Center, University of Twente, UNC, and the Institute for Urban Public Health in the University of SN. In our next slide, we purposed to conduct this study in Nairobi, in Kenya, specifically looking at comparing water insecurity and lived sanitation experiences in formal settlements, and also comparing that with informal settings. And also to look at how water and sanitation insecurity affects well-being across these settlements. The last objective was to explore how these challenges interact with flooding to create compound or cumulative challenges. Next. Yeah, so we had three approaches. First, a qualitative component involving focus group discussions, and these are disaggregated by age, gender. The second component was a household survey in both the informal and in the formal and informal settings, which also combined a choice experiment component. Although this was only conducted in the informal settings. I will share findings in our next slide on water insecurity, sanitation, and give some conclusions. So availability, accessibility, quality and affordability of water remain met, especially in informal settings. Availability of water was, characterized by interrupted supply of water. Also, the quality was poor, and especially after interruptions, majorly because of pipe leakages, poor maintenance. Also, again, affordability, especially during water interruptions. That the tendency to have price hikes, and these also relating to increased costs in water treatment at the household level. Sometimes, to an extent, also compromising basic needs, where households have to decide whether to buy water, to buy food, or to buy treatment products. Accessibility was also a challenge, with time burden and sleep disruptions, especially among women, and more so when water is available at night, and households have to wake up to fetch water at that time. So addressing these water insecurity challenges actually needs participatory, gender-inclusive, context-specific solutions. In our next slide, we'll show water insecurity and how these affected or influences well-being. And so these are some of the qualitative insights largely reported on health risks, including diseases like pneumonia. There also reports on physical strain, and we've seen this being reported by women and girls, especially taking water on their backs, upstairs or from long distances. Again, also injuries and what do you call it, conflicts in especially where households have to fetch water from public water points. There was also stress and worrying and uncertainties, especially when households lack water, and also strain, social and personal relationships are also affected. Some households were reporting that they do not even wish to have visitors because the washrooms lacked water. On sanitation, in experiences, we also notice that these are closely interconnected or related to water insecurity. And similarly to what we've seen in the water insecurity aspects, availability, quality and affordability of sanitation is largely dependent on water supply. And when interruptions occur, this led to closed sanitation facilities. It led to, affected functionality and hygiene with poor quality sanitation, and especially even during flooding, where contamination to the environment and water is at high risk. Affordability was also highly reported, especially where water interruptions now lead to price hikes and high operational costs, especially for public sanitation facilities. And also accessibility, especially where during flooding, so where sanitation facilities are not accessible by household members, either due to distance or time of use. So how did sanitation, these experiences affect well-being? In the next slide, we'll see that informal settings, sanitation-related quality of life was lower in informal than formal settlements. And this, as you can see, where sanitation-related quality of life indicators in formal settlements, almost across all indicators, households reported to never experience some of these indicators, and compared to in the informal settlements, where almost all across all indicators, households reported to always experience majority of these indicators. And so also subjective well-being was lower in informal settlements than informal settlements. And so better sanitation related quality of life was linked to better well-being, and this was independent of financial situation, sex, and settlement type. In conclusion, we show that water and sanitation insecurity goes beyond access, with implications on health, well-being and productivity. And so local knowledge and deed has been revealed to, reveals what matters to people. Reliable, safe, affordable, and all things. Accessible water is and not just the presence of a water source. And so this local knowledge also was important in identifying the most vulnerable and their lived experiences, especially women, girls, especially in our case, women, girls, water insecure households, residents of informal settings. As a recommendation, show that it's important to integrate local communities into planning and decision making, so that solutions or interventions that may come from this align with the local priorities, and especially some of the example of these active leadership roles for women in water and sanitation planning, governance, and decision making. Thank you, and back to you, Julia.
Thank you, Dennis, for the great summary of our work in Nairobi, and sorry to everyone for the hiccup in sharing the slides. So hopefully it will work throughout the end of the session. Next, I'm going to introduce Gail Anders. She's an accomplished operations manager with over 2 decades of progressive experience in project coordination, strategic operations, and organizational leadership. With a strong foundation in food service management and project management, she has also led complex multi-stakeholder projects across public and private sectors in South Africa. At VPU, Gail has spearheaded operations, managed diverse project teams, and played a pivotal role in program design, implementation, and reporting. Her skill set includes financial administration, proposal development, strategic planning, and stakeholder engagement. Gail brings proven leadership in operational system optimization, youth and community development initiatives, and cross-sector collaboration. And now I invite her to share the work in South Africa.
Thank you, Julia. Unfortunately, I'm still having challenges with my camera. It turns on and then it just turns off immediately. So yeah, we're just going to carry on.
Yes, we can hear you well. That's the most important. And I'll also continue managing the slides as well.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. Because I was going to say I can't see the take control form. So thank you, everybody, for the opportunity today. I'm giving feedback today on Work Package 4.4, the role of quality of governance, specifically the link between co-production processes and well-being in informal settlements. So this was a collaboration. Go to the next slide, Julia. A collaboration between the University of Stuttgart Urban Design Team and the VPUU not-for-profit organization, as you can see our faces there. So for a little bit of context, in Cape Town, South Africa, the history of spatial segregation is very evident in the urban landscape, with almost 20% of Cape Town's residents living in informal settlements, and these informal settlements continue to grow. And most scholarly research on informal settlements highlights issues such as social inequality, inadequate housing, inadequate service provision, and contested planning processes. And this study offers an alternative perspective that highlights enhancing the quality of life and well-being through community agency, through co-production and civic engagement, and through supportive governance. So we used a qualitative case study in a specific informal settlement in Cape Town to examining 3 aspects. Firstly, the community participation in co-producing social infrastructure. Secondly, the impact on well-being that this process has, and then offer recommendations to foster participation and governance. The next slide, I'll give you a little bit about information about VPUU, not-profit. So we're a community development organization whose vision is to transform low-income neighborhoods to safe and sustainable communities. VPUU was established in 2013 as an intermediary to anchor the dialogue between the public sector and the citizens, organized in local leadership forums to assist the implementation of a programmatic approach. And VPU, the next slide gives our approach covers 4 themes: prevention, cohesion, protection, and research. I'm not going to go into any more detail in that. Our methodologies, our holistic participatory approach engages the community from the very beginning throughout the process of design, implementation, maintenance, activation, and then monitoring and evaluation. And a cornerstone of this is the development of a local area strategy, which you see in the second line of the methodology, the planning. So what we call a community action plan, a CAP for short. And as one works through the methodology, our work is aimed towards deepening citizenship, pride, encouraging partnerships, and improving the overall quality of life. So in terms of the research context, next slide, Julia. South Africa is a very busy slide, but in a nutshell, South Africa has gone through a decentralization process over the past 50 years since the first free elections in '94, working with 3 tiers of government, and the process is quite legislated. Read between the lines, bureaucracy. So there's still a distance between community and state actors, and VPU acts as an intermediary to link the community actors and the state actors. In a nutshell, the municipality develops an IDP, the Integrated Development Plan, to identify municipal and town level needs, and the Community Action Plan, which is then co-developed with community stakeholders, is the strategic plan on a neighborhood level, which defines needs and projects where all role players can be heard and, most importantly, held accountable. The explanation about the Community Action Plan is important because that shows where the projects came from. So the next slide shows, so the central case study is the VPU program implemented in Monrovisi Park, which is an informal settlement in Khayelitsha in Cape Town, using this area-based approach. And 4 co-produced interventions that were identified through the development of the Community Action Plan were identified for this study, and those being Early Childhood Development Outreach Program, Urban Food Gardens, Organic Waste Collection, and VNet, which is the VPUU Internet Services, so public Wi-Fi. The research questions, next slide, thank you. So the study assesses the impact of these social infrastructure interventions, which governance structures, partnerships, and community arrangements were key to promoting the quality of life and well-being, and then how to contextualize quality of life and well-being in the South African informal settlement context to really reflect lived experiences and quality of life priorities. Those were our questions. We used 5 different data collection methods, transect walks through the community to view the specific projects. Focus group discussions were held. There were qualitative interviews with community members, interviews with VPUU experts, and there was also an online photo voice survey. Then we've got a few slides of the findings. I'm not going to read these in detail, but one sees one of the overarching themes that emerged was a sense of purpose, pride, and self-esteem of community members through their involvement in projects. And if you move to the next slide, please, there was strong proof of very strong interdependencies between social engagement and safety, as is shared by the quote from a woman who is involved in the food garden, and the link to cooking for the ECD, for the Early Childhood Development Center, regarding how knowing your neighbors increases one's perception of safety. And then the third finding underscored the need for and the appreciation of leadership development and decision making, and also that in this case, is VPUU, but that the program didn't come with projects, rather used the development of the Community Action Plan to co-create the community needs. And this links back to the need for non-legislative and localized approaches to form a framework. So the recommendations, we can move on to the recommendations. Thanks. What became clear is that just looking at economic figures is too short-sighted. A holistic approach is needed to look at the interconnectedness of factors and role players and break it down to the lived reality of community members. So the recommendations that arose are adopt a holistic approach through integrating non-economic drivers in quality of life research and policies, then to contextualize quality of life and well-being assessments, to acknowledge, mandate, and support hybrid governance schemes, combining both legislated and non-legislated approaches to planning, to foster targeted long-term partnerships to sustain gains of quality of life and well-being, and to monitor and reflect regularly on quality of life and well-being. A whole lot, 13 policy recommendations for well-being emerged from this study. And if you move to the last slide, please, Julia, those marked in orange are explicitly supported through this study. And I'm not going to read through them all. I think everybody will get access to the presentation. So I hope I didn't rush through that too much. It's a lot of information, and it was a wonderful study to be part of. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gail, for your insights into the importance of co-production and also nicely linking it to some policy recommendations that came out of the WISER project. And with that, we move to the last country and the next presentation by Dr. Michael Nana, who's a development and spatial economist and lecturer at the Department of Planning at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. His work focuses on development economics, particularly the exploration of strategies for sustainable development, the measurement and analysis of quality of life, and the spatial dimensions of economic phenomena. Michael is also an active member of the Ghana Institution of Planning, the Ghana Geospatial Society, and the International Society for Quality of Life Studies, through which he fosters collaboration between academic and applied work. So Michael, we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much. So please, great. So we dealt with social capital and well-being in the second largest city in Ghana. And we are saying that why the community network matters and why they must be matched with safer markets and protection. So the study basically was undertaken, please next slide. The study was basically undertaken in Kumasi, as I said, the second largest city. The city is made up of about 4.5 million people, of which majority are female. We have about 51% of the whole population being female, and then about 49% being male. So the female population dominates the population. However, whenever there are, let's say, disasters and economic hardships, the females are mostly the ones who are affected because they are into employments that are quite vulnerable. So you will see that in 2022, inflation in Ghana rose up to about 54%. This is post-pandemic, after the country had gone through the COVID-19 pandemic issues and most people have lost their livelihood. Inflation also rose to about 54%. And this affected majority. And this was also coming on the back of what we call the banking sector collapse, where some banks were no more liquid and they had to be collapsed. And most of these women were saving with these banks and savings and loans. We call them savings and loans. Banks that would take savings and give loans to the women to expand their businesses and their trade. These banks went down, and it meant that they lost their savings. Some had already lost their capital through COVID. So most of them were in precarious situations, as against most of them also about 35% of them living in informal settlement. Hence, most of these women had issues with their livelihood. So the question was, how were they sustaining themselves using their social capital that they already had? So the question was, that social capital sustain economic resilience and well-being under conditions of vulnerability in urban Africa? Yes, indeed. Apart from they losing that, so you realize that we interviewed about 704 women vendors. The survey took place in Kumasi. Kumasi has about 8 municipalities. KMA is the largest one. Hence, you will see the majority. It's the largest one. It houses the CBD of Kumasi. So you will see that majority of the women were surveyed from KMA. In this, we came up with some composite index for social capital, vulnerability, and then well-being, and then we try to look at the relationship between them. Next slide, please. So based on what we did, we found out that vulnerability is the strongest threat to well-being. You will see that because of the informal nature of their work, the vendors, they face a lot of eviction. They face eviction threat, harassment, theft, and unstable income, because most of them had lost their savings through what we call the banking sector cleanup, and then what we call the debt exchange program. So they didn't have a lot of income, and those who were threatened the most were those widows. Those who had lost their spouses were those who were more vulnerable, and hawkers who were found in the central business district. They were most vulnerable. So this had an impact on their well-being. So the study found out that about 61% of the vendors we interviewed reported income instability as the most widespread risk. That what really threatens their livelihood was income instability. And then about 46% also talked about harassment in the past 6 months. Then 52% also said that they have been affected by the weather through trading. Recently, in Ghana, most traders have lost their livelihood due to flooding. So flooding in the 2 main capital cities in Ghana is quite high when we are in the rainy season. So you realize that majority of them reported, when we talk about the quintals, you will see that majority reported their life satisfaction, the mean well-being on a scale of 1 to 5 as 4, which looked quite high. Please, next slide. Great. So in that case, we try to find out whether social capital predicts well-being more than income. And what we found out is that 55% of the total effect of social capital on well-being was indirect. It was not direct. And when we looked at social capital in terms of what we did in Ghana, we looked at social capital in three basic dimensions. So social capital was looked at from the dimension of bonding, and then let me basically say two: bonding and then bridging. Bonding, where we are looking at ties with family and neighbors, and then the bridging was tied to formal associations where like the traders union and all that. But what we found was that in the time of their in the time of hardship and economic crisis, bonding was found to be the most effective way of overcoming economic crisis. So bonding had much impact, indirect impact on their well-being. So we were saying that one standard deviation rise in social capital lifts well-being by about 0.2 points. That is a gain roughly equal to moving up a full income category. So we found out that social capital had more impact or showed more influence on their well-being than income, given the fact that most people had now lost trust in the banking sector and in the small savings and loan sector, because these sectors had collapsed and most of them had lost their income. Please, next slide. So in going forward, we found out that social capital works exactly more than formal protection. So what we said was that in terms of well-being and their network, how network compensates, we found out that on safe market and low trust, in terms of their relationship, those who said that there is unsafe market and they trust their trust in those who manages the city, their well-being was about 3.4. Those who also said this is like a matrix. So you see that unsafe market, high trust 3.8. We have dirty market, low social capital 2.9 in terms of the mean well-being, dirty market, high social capital. So you will see that here, what we said was that institutional trust is rare, but decisive. Less than 28% of the respondents trust the municipal authorities. Yet, where that trust exists, well-being rose to about 3.9. So you will see that when these vendors had trust in their local authorities as to how they will manage the affairs of the city to make their lives better, it meant that their well-being rose to about 3.9. That is, so we found out that in terms of social capital, we were also looking at how they relate to the city authorities and how governance go on to affect their well-being. And you will see that those who trusted the city authorities as to, and the market authorities as to how they manage those places, it led to an increase in their well-being. Please, next slide. So here we said that context decides whether network pays off. So we found out that there were three typologies of market this thing, and you will realize that we said that the mean well-being for those who reported high social capital, low vulnerability, you will see that we call them the socially buffered and safe. Socially buffered and safe. So for them, you will see that those you realize that but they had moderate income, and you realize that their well-being was quite higher. Then we also had a category called the economically secured, and then we call them the middling social capital. So these are people who had high income, low vulnerability, but their networks were very low. They had low networks. So the first one is high social capital, low vulnerability, moderate income. Then the second one, high income, lower vulnerability, and then, however, they had weaker networks. Then the third one is, we call them the precarious ones. They had low social capital, however, high vulnerability, and they were operating in degraded markets. So here we said that the context matters. So wherever you found yourself to be trading or to be doing your vendoring affected your well-being. So we said that widows and hawkers are 3 times more likely to land in the precarious. That is what we found in the precarious cluster than in the socially buffered and socially buffered one. That is those who were widowed and those who were hawking. All these people have been registered, but some of them just move around to sell their goods. And this shows that there are structural disadvantages. These are structural disadvantages. They are not personal choices. And these are the 3 things that drives the gap in well-being. Please, the next slide. So what we said was that building up from the local knowledge to live experience, we said that the instrument was not, we used an instrument and we did not import that instrument whole scale. It was grounded in the Kumasi market. So what we are saying is that, and one thing that we also found out was that we needed to reduce well-being into the local language. We needed to be able to find a clear explanation as to what well-being is in the local language. And what we are saying is that we want to, since Kumasi is expanding and there is an urban sprawl and other cities, municipalities are getting joined, we want to pilot the same instrument in another town called Ejesu, so that we will be able to understand whether the local language that we used was, we could confirm it and then make it more generalized so that whoever wants to study well-being can use that instrument. Next slide, please. Great. So here we said that what outlasts a single project? Protection alongside network. So what we said was that they need protection. However, they also need to improve on their network. So Susu groups are small scale savings. Small scale savings that we have. It is an association put together by the market, the vendors themselves. So it's a form of savings. They collect the money and then deposit them in the bank. So we are saying that Susu groups and association cannot substitute for anti-harassment enforcement. So they need secure stores allocation and then working drainage. And we are saying that structural protection has to run parallel with the community building. That is, the city authorities must protect them, not threaten to evict them, not see them as nuisance, but find a way of incorporating them. And this must also run along their social capital that they are building. Then we are saying that bridging capital deliberately built. We found out that trust in family exceeded 90%, which means that amongst themselves, they could not build enough trust. Then we said that institutional trust sits below 30%. So a lot of people didn't believe in the institutions that manage the market and the city to improve their quality of life. So we are saying that without ties running upward to the government, networks may not necessarily improved. They may have broader networks, but they may be operating in an environment which is not, which may be toxic to their overall well-being. So their well-being may not increase. Then we are saying that support targeted, not generic. So we are saying that we found out that widows and hawkers and the less educated women are consistently the most excluded in the market. Although they are there, you will see that their well-being is quite low. Their networks are also low because stigmatization, and if you are not well educated, you may not be able to join some of these groups. So that is what we said. I think I have the final slide. The last slide, please. So here, we said that for policy implication, we say that there are two levels. One resilient strategy. So here we are saying that to improve the well-being of these vendors, number one, there is a need to reduce vulnerability. That is, anti-harassment task force should be accountable, with accountability should be formed. Although we want the city to be well organized, we also need anti-harassment task force. Then transparent and secure store allocation. The allocation of stalls for vendors doesn't look too much transparent, and hence these people will have to hawk. That leads to a reduction in their well-being. Then widow support grants and emergency, then emergency transfer. Then we have strengthening social capital, that is digitize and skills groups. That is these small savings, we need to digitize them and scale them up. Then formally recognized traders association. These associations, which forms the network and the social capital, should be formally recognized so that they can do it. Then rebuild institutional trust through transparent governance. Thank you so much. I think my slides are done. Great, my slides are done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael, for your interesting presentation on the role of social capital, but also linking it to the importance of local measurement instruments and wider policy implications, which link nicely to our next step, the roundtable discussion with all the speakers. And I would now like to welcome back Liliana Miranda-Sada and also introduce to you Caroline Cabaria, who will both moderate our discussion. Caroline is a senior research scientist at the African Population and Health Research Center, Nairobi, in the Urbanization and Wellbeing Unit. And her research focuses on urban health and well-being in informal settlements with expertise in geoinformatics, remote sensing, and spatial modeling. She also works on methodological frameworks that integrate spatial analysis to evaluate the impacts of interventions, policies, and social trends, particularly in urban context. So welcome, Liliana and Caroline.
Thank you. Well, we have a very short time for the questions for our speakers. Okay, maybe we can start with Dennis. Dennis and Michael, I don't know if you are both of you together here, but what does well-being for all mean when communities continue to face water insecurity, insecure tenure, weak services, or economic hardship? Oh,
okay, let me go first. Yeah, sorry, Michael. Yeah, so in our case, our Nairobi case, well-being for all means safe, reliable, and affordable access to both water and sanitation. And we believe that well-being will not be achievable if these inequalities continue, especially among vulnerable or disadvantaged groups. And I think this has been shown across the cases, including residents of informal settlements, women, low-income households, and also specifically for our case, which was largely water-focused, water-insecure households. So this could, you could imagine well-being would look like, residents worrying about water, women waking up in the late night to fetch water, spending hours in queues, skipping bathing and laundry, anxiety, especially during flooding, and a sense of feeling helpless over things or aspects that are beyond their control. So one can imagine now the compound effect of these experiences or inequalities among these vulnerable groups. So therefore, we believe achieving well-being for all will require addressing these addressing community priorities in a sense that what matters to people. And of course, this could vary across settings. It could even vary from one informal settings to another informal settings, but also taking, an integrated approach, because these challenges are interconnected. Water insecurities are interconnected with sanitation insecurities. Thank you.
The question is, what did the cases show that standard indicators or dashboard might miss?
Yes, so when you begin to look at the standard indicators and the dashboard, you will realize that over here, we said that hawkers, widows, and the context of the market had so much impact on the well-being of the women. So if you are developing an indicator, I believe that we must first do a basic survey of understanding what well-being means to the people in, as we say, the local language, because people conceptualize well-being differently in their minds. So basically, well-being indicators in Ghana, given the fact that we have different contexts, and this one had to do with women in an urban area, we need to contextualize first from the language aspect. Second, trust. We have this issue of trust in institutions. Trust in institutions came up strongly. So if people are in the markets, they are trading, they are doing their businesses, but they still don't trust the city authorities and the market authorities that they will be protected, it affects their quality of life. So institutional trust is something that is likely to be missing. And then I also looked at the issue of transparency. All these things are things that normally goes with informal areas. So if you are looking at an informal economy, you need to look at trust is an important thing. Then we also need to look at what we call the bonding aspect, where who are their families? Where are their families? What kind of networks do they have with their families? If we take this out, they are likely to create issues for well-being. For now, this is what I want to say. This is something we are likely to miss.
Thank you.
Yes.
Actually, Gail, what lessons from Nairobi, Cape Town, Kumasi, and Chiclayo do you think are transferable? And what needs to remain context specific? That's a broad question for you.
Thanks, Liliana. Well, Caroline's mic isn't working, but my video started working, so that's great.
Oh.
So the processes definitely stay the same, as Michael was just reiterating. Trust, the networks, the collaboration. It's definitely a common thread between the 4 case studies. as is the social compact. And I think Michael also in his presentation, he described that very similarly to our methodology, the need for and the benefit of mapping first, stakeholder liaison, really getting to know the stakeholders before implementing. So so that's transferable, or already there in these 4 cases. That process, the stakeholders obviously differ per context. So who can be the intermediaries in each different context, and that's again the importance of doing your good stakeholder mapping and finding out who can be trusted by both public sector and citizens. And those are the variables, but the essentials as well.
Well, actually, what we are discussing here have a lot of climate and justice implications and rights also, right? I mean, integrated justice and rights into urban climate policies also. I mean, the Chiclayo case, I am asking myself in this moment, Caroline proposed this question for me. It's quite related to climate risk and climate hazards. So we have to deal also with urban climate policies. And I have seen all the cases now, and it's clear that are also, you know, something important to be taken into account in each case. We have to prevent forced displacement using inclusive adaptation strategy. We have to ensure meaningful community participation in decisions on land, housing, and common goods. We have to promote safe, accessible, and ecological housing, supporting by, you know, job creation and, you know, a kind of a system of protection, social protection for the communities, particularly for women. Women have been mentioned several times. And we have to also think about the inclusivity, you know, the necessity of participation, of binding participation, to strengthening participation structures and public community partnerships. In a way, in Peru, we call it promoting democratic governance based on trust, dialogue, and shared responsibilities. So citizens forums, observatories, guaranteed transparency of the information, environmental justice, defending the individuals, you know, it's part of all of these. And of course, the weakest of the group, I mean, the widows, the handicapped people, you know, disabled people. And for that, you also need to ensure climate funds, financing. I mean, we all the time, as said in the first intervention, I mean, we are all suffering of inequality, and inequality starts in financing issues. We have to ensure funding to reach local communities and governments. We have to prioritize effective reparation for vulnerable groups and informal settlements, strengthening the self-management capacity and the social production of habitat by themselves, because they are already doing it, and we have to help them to do it by themselves. And that's a meaning of, you know, a permanent problem to channel the finance, to channel the budget, the public investment, to channel the resources toward locally led projects by women, youth, racialized and indigenous community, marginalized groups in general terms. And of course, I mean, it's a matter also of knowledge. You know, we need to use, to capitalize, to strengthen local knowledge, local capacities, and strengthen alliances, recognizing local and indigenous knowledge, promoting collective learning, valuing community and women's knowledge as a foundation for action and climate action, fostering co-production of knowledge among communities, scientists, politicians, academics, practitioners, and expanding information. Actually, I think we are having a very, very interesting discussion now with the cases. But in general terms, what do you think? How can Global South perspectives challenge dominant European or Western assumptions about quality of life and well-being then? What do you think? Any of you can, even if you, yeah.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Yes,
please.
So when you come to Global South, as I said, when you ask the ordinary person what well-being is, its conceptualization is far fluid than what you have in the Global North. So I believe that there was a presentation by Martin who said about the cheerful discontent, when people express optimism, they are happy, but the environment is quite, you will see that the environment is quite challenging. A lot of things are not going on right, but you will see that people are expressing a higher quality of life. So you will realize that in Global South, for instance, in Ghana, it may not necessarily be the built environment or the economic environment. However, it has much more relationship with, as I said, family relationships, relationships with the church. You will see that in our final report, you will see that churches and religious organizations play much more influence, or their influence in the quality of, or the well-being of people. For instance, in Ghana, is is much higher. For instance, when people go to church and they get encouraged in church services, yes, indeed, the environment may not look good, their economy may not look good, but you realize that people are not giving up. They are happy. You ask them and they're reporting higher quality of life and all that. So you realize that in Global South, especially in Ghana, much of the determinants of well-being is not related to material things, but it's rather related to how people relate to each other. So it is Friday, everybody is going home. We are going to meet our families. That gives much joy. So you will see that during weekends, people are going for funerals. Funerals are bigger events. People are going for wedding ceremonies. These are big events that are organized and people attend them, and it brings some level of happiness, if I want to use the word happiness, to them. So you will see that people in terms of material well-being are not, is not looking good. But on the other hand, other things are making them happy. So in learning about well-being in the Global South, we just need to go beyond the indicators that have been put out by the main institutions, and then you go down there to find out what really makes people happy, and you find out that it goes beyond material items. That is what I want to say for now.
I don't know if anyone else of the speakers would like to complement this or not.
Okay, yes, just briefly. So maybe Our case, of course, challenges the assumption that quality of life can be measured primarily by economic prosperity. Of course, that is important, but as we have shown, I think across the cases, it goes beyond that. For example, in the Nairobi case, it's about whether people can reliably access water, live in dignity, social support and participate in society, and especially for informal settings, whether they are able to cope with these, everyday realities without compromising their health and livelihood. So, for example, a household may be classified as having access to improved water source, yet, that water only flows a few hours in a week, or maybe the supply is unpredictable, or as I alluded earlier, or the households now have to, especially women have to wake up at night to collect water. Or, for example, during shortages, a family may spend a large portion of their income on water, or or maybe reduce their spending on food or education just to afford water. Yeah, so just to reiterate, other factors beyond economic prosperity also, of course, contribute to well-being, especially in vulnerable groups. Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thanks to all speakers and also our moderators for reflecting on the lessons learned across the cases. We are running out of time now, but I'd like to briefly open the floor to the audience and invite my colleagues, Dr. Maria Bakayova and Dr. Carm Anthony, to read out one or two questions from the chat.
Yes, thanks, Julia. Can you hear me well? Can I be heard? Yes, great, thanks. Wonderful. Just checking. There is one question from the audience, and I will be I'll just read it out. And after this discussion, there are wonderful outcomes and results that we have found on the material side. But the question is on the research side, essentially, from our colleague. Let me see. From Nina Raunicht. Thanks, Carmen, for making this helping me out. So the question is on the research side. So when and it is for the South African case. So when you're working with citizens and engaging citizens, the question is: did you at any stage of your research encounter any challenges in implementing community co-production, and how did you handle these? So this is what came in.
Okay, that's quite a complex question, and yeah, yes, how long is the piece of string to answer?
Exactly. Well, maybe at least 3.
Yes. I mean, there are daily challenges. It's both a huge advantage and also could be seen as a challenge to go to a community and ask for to co-produce something. You ask 100 people for their opinion, and everybody's got a different opinion, and all of those opinions are valid. So finding the way, crystallizing what is necessary, and yeah, trying to understand the hidden agendas. I think in our specific context, in South Africa, that would probably be the biggest challenge that I would say. Trying to understand what is actual for the greater good, for the community, what is the community's needs, and where are other people bringing in their own agendas, and trying to work around those. There are also challenges. I mean, political political challenges, political interference, unfortunately, always play a part. We had a very good relationship with the City of Cape Town for many years, and managed to implement most of the projects through that relationship. But even within the City of Cape Town, the political interference that arises is a big challenge. Language and culture. South Africa is we have 11 national languages, official languages, and many more smaller ones and dialects. So that can also become a problem or a challenge. And so it's that trust building. The challenge is also not being allowed enough time to co-develop something with a community. Funders, independent funders, including governmental structures, they want to see immediate change and immediate development, but change, sustainable change, takes time. I think I'll stop there because I could probably carry on for a long time.
Well, this was the only question from the audience list that we could deduct from the Q&A. Is that correct, Carmen, or are you having something else?
There's another one from Javier.
Okay, maybe can you go through it? Yes.
Then maybe I'll just take a minute. And so Sigrid, who's from the University of Stuttgart, she put into the Q&A chat, if you can find it. I think it looks to me like it's the last one. The report on so just recommend that people maybe have a look at that report as well.
And of course, Carmen has posted more. Thanks for attending to this. Carmen has also posted more links from the project output. So please feel free to go through them and take a look at that, because there is a lot of valuable output generated during the project. So that is, I think we can with this close this part, because and we're also running a bit out of time. So over to you, Julia.
Yes, thanks a lot for questions from our moderators, from the audience. And before we close, I would like to thank all our presenters and moderators for sharing their insights and experiences, and also to everyone in the audience for joining us today. You have already seen all the links to the deliverables in the chat. They're also summarized here in the slides, and you can head to our website, WISER Horizons, to look also at deliverables from other working packages. And all these findings have been also compiled into a policy briefing report that was specific to the case studies you've heard today. But they have also informed the WISER Green Book, which translates the overall project's research into practical policy guidance. And this Green Book was recently launched in the Static Measuring Progress seminar series, and you can see the QR code for accessing the recording of that seminar. And also just raising some upcoming events. So we would like to highlight the WISER Summer School, which will be designed for researchers interested in quality of life, happiness, well-being, and sustainability, and also warmly invite you to the WISER Final Conference taking place at the beginning of September in Siena, and you can still register for the conference until end of this month. And again, thanks for joining us today, and we hope that the discussion has provided some stimulating insights into the role of non-economic drivers of well-being, and specifically how local knowledge and lived experiences can help shape more inclusive policies. And with that, we wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.